Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Berto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. I understand that, let's see, first of all, let me know if you guys, reverb is on, audio reverb. Let me see if I can fix that, brothers and sisters, and then you guys tell me when it's corrected. I think I see the problem. Hold on. It is just the intro. Okay, so you're saying it's working fine now. Well, look, thank you guys for letting me know what's going on. Anyhow, folks, we're going to have a great show for you today. Avan John Q, Michael Rudnin, welcome aboard, my dear friends. Today, it happened. Should Bernie have, title of the show, should Bernie have suspended scientist discusses COVID-19 defective charts? So we have two topics today. The first one is going to be Bernie. Bernie Sanders suspended his campaign, but will remain on the ballot. What's up, Arkin TE13? Welcome aboard to Politics Done Right. Before you guys go any further, please remember one thing that I ask you to do every single time. Please share Norman Relen's delayed voice over. I don't know what you mean by delayed voice over. Are you saying that my voice is not corresponding to my lips? Let me know if that's the case, because that would be a function of our broadcast software, something that we'd have to report to them. Anyhow, folks, today is a very important day. And before I let me go ahead and read what the topic is. Bernie Sanders suspended his campaign but will remain on the ballot. Right thing to do? Scientist Bruce Pollard tells us why COVID-19 charts are defective. And for those of you who are inside of our chat room, Bruce is already there listening. Bruce is going to be on live with us in the second half of the program. Very important that he has to discuss some issues with the charts. America must be sad for the sequence of events that led to Bernie Sanders' suspension of his campaign. It is clear that Americans wanted his policies, not only Democrats, but Americans in general. That said, Bernie's refusal to simply release his troops to Biden is being met with consternation from many. And you know what? I don't know about y'all, but right now, I think Bernie is doing it the way it needs to be done. If you don't agree with me, I'd like to hear your point of view. I mean, whether you're a Democrat or not, I think it is imperative that we hear each other's point of view on this particular issue. But going back to the issue, I think it is necessary for us not to simply cede. Never just cede your sovereignty. Never just cede your vote. This is something I think minorities, people of color, black people do all the time. I think they cede their votes. They allow themselves to be considered a monolith. And in doing so many times, they are disregarded. Though that vote is mine. Well, that cost Hillary the election, right? Had Hillary gone to Milwaukee, had Hillary gone to Madison, Wisconsin, had Hillary gone to Pittsburgh, had Hillary gone to Detroit, she would be president today, and the nightmare that we're going through right now with Donald Trump would be less than it is. Okay, of course, we'd still have some neoliberal nightmares to contend with, but at least we would not have had that. So let me go ahead and bring, Rudnin, that's true, except proportionality creates a problem. So I am not sure. I am not sure exactly how that would work, but let me go ahead and play the video that I have for today. I am seeing some interesting issues with our connections. So if you guys see any issues with the connections, go ahead and report it to me. If you're seeing any connection issues, I ask you to report it to me, and then we'll take it from there. Anyhow, I want you to see what I went ahead and prepared for you, and then we'll take it on the other side. Let's go ahead and bring that in. Oh, it seems like I didn't quite have it ready, but you know what? I am going to bring that in right now, bring it into your fold right now. I think this is it right here. Every now and then you run into some issues and say, oh, but did you do it? Here we go. By now, we've all seen that Bernie Sanders has suspended his campaign. The question is, how should he have done that? Well, I've started to get calls and texts that people are upset because Bernie Sanders said that he is suspending his campaign. He made it quite evident that he believes that Joe Biden will be ultimately the nominee. I still doubt that. I still think there may be some other issues to be taken care of by the DNC. But what he said is that he wants to maintain his delegates and he's going to remain on the ballot. And the reason he's going to do that, he wants to have influence on what the party platform is going to be. And that is an interest that was earned. But it's not only that. We have to recall how this came about. This came about when the entire power of the Democratic Party, the entire power of the corporatocracy came out against a surging candidate. They came out against a surging candidate telling the people at large, this is the only person that can win, that being Joe Biden. This is the only one that can beat Donald Trump. And given the fear that many have for Donald Trump, that is what you got. Well, for those who may doubt that, the power of the party was very responsible for holding back a surging candidate, one of the greatest talking pieces for the mainstream media, the corporate media, tends to agree as well. And here we go. Check this out.
Steve, it is remarkable where we were on the eve of the Nevada caucuses, Bernie Sanders declaring victory in San Antonio, Texas, going on the air ready to pull a huge upset in South Carolina, and here we are today.
We've just seen Joe Biden, something that in the modern history of Democratic nominating contests, and that goes back a half century to 1972, in the modern history we've never seen, and that is that Joe Biden, he didn't just lose Iowa and then lose New Hampshire and then, for that matter, lose Nevada. He lost them big. He was left in the dust in those states. You can remember New Hampshire. Remember this? Remember the night of the New Hampshire primary? Look, you couldn't even see Joe Biden's name here. You had to go down past. There's Joe Biden in 5th place at 8%. I mean, you've seen candidates who've lost early states like Bill Clinton in 92 and become the Democratic nominee, but they got moral victories in the early states. Clinton could call himself the comeback kid in New Hampshire in 92. There were no moral victories for Joe Biden in those first 3 states, but you said it. It was that moment when Bernie Sanders won Nevada. He won it going away, and it looked like, based on how these things have gone in the past, that there might be a bandwagon effect, that Sanders might grow his support in South Carolina on Super Tuesday and beyond and kind of run away with the Democratic nomination. And instead, that great moment for Bernie Sanders, I think that victory for him in Nevada turned into the worst moment for him as a candidate because it focused the rest of the Democratic Party, the non-Sanders component of the party, on that gut check question. Do we really want to make, they had to ask themselves, Bernie Sanders the nominee? Their answer was no. The signal they got in South Carolina from Jim Clyburn, from the voters in South Carolina, every single county in the state was Biden blue that night. Basically a 30-point win for Joe Biden. The signal the Democratic Party got coming out of South Carolina was, if you don't want Sanders, it's Biden. And that was the answer we got from pretty much every state after that. Biden, Biden, Biden.
I think the biggest lesson is Bernie Sanders was right. There is a Democratic establishment, and it's still strong enough to keep him from getting the nomination.
That from the dean of the corporate media. It is still strong enough to deny him the nomination. And look, this is understood. But the reason that I am putting this out is not to attempt to be a spoiler, because that I will not be. But I think it is essential for people to understand that if America is saying the policies we want are the policies that Bernie Sanders is supporting, and the policies, but the reason that we're voting for Biden is because he is the only one we think can win. And if you have the power of the party, the power of the corporatocracy telling you that the only way you can get Trump out of the White House, that person that you so fear, the only way you can do it is through Biden. Biden is the only viable candidate. Then, of course, people that feel they will be most hurt by a Donald Trump second term will vote against it. But then there are the strong ones. They're the ones that say, you know what? We want a real change, and the way to get a real change is to give Americans what they want and not allow the corporate media and not allow a portion of a party beholden to a plutocracy, beholden to an oligarchy to say, hey, this is the only person that you can go with. You better go with this or else. So why then am I very happy that Mr. Sanders has decided not to simply throw his hands up and say bye-bye and endorse? Because I believe they asked for Biden. That's fine. If they want Biden to win, then they have to negotiate a win with all the factions, with all the stakeholders that are going to be in that new administration. And why do I say that? Well, I will explain this a little bit further as we go on. But to put it bluntly, Bernie Sanders, in leaving the way that he left, is doing the right thing. You must earn Bernie Sanders' vote. You must earn the work that he did and the work that others did. Because remember, he did that as a faction. The others did it under the umbrella of the plutocracy and the portion of the Democratic Party that is beholden to that plutocracy. I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right and Independent. Okay, here's the deal, folks. I want to now go over a text interchange with a darn good friend of mine. To put it bluntly, I am. It's a good friend, but I am upset at this friend that he still sees things through colored glasses. He still sees things in an insular manner. But here's the dialogue. He sends, after Bernie Sanders did his speech, he sends a comment and he says, "Is Sanders working to get Trump re-election? Where is the gracious exit that all the Democratic candidates made? Does he care about how his behavior is helping Trump? I didn't hear anything about coming together to defeat Trump. The most Sanders can do is cause a division at the convention and make his followers act like spoiled kids." Sad. I'm sorry. First of all, I don't act like a spoiled kid. Secondly, I am a Bernie Sanders supporter, not because I am somehow a cultist to Bernie Sanders. I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter because the policies he supports are the policies that support the poor, are the policies that support the middle class, including some of the high-end middle class that don't yet understand that they are being pilfered and ultimately will pay the price, like many find out when it's too late. So I responded, "My brother, I think you're tone deaf, and it is that which will lose the election. When empathy starts, let me know. Most don't have anything else to lose. While Trump may be bad for you and me, for most it doesn't matter. And when those in your class, the guardians of the status quo, realize that, then the country can move forward. Till then, many are ready to give the big FU for being selfish. Hell, they have got nothing to lose. When they start looking through when you start looking through the eyes of others, I will get perturbed. Till then, I am in solidarity with those who too many of us have screwed with our mental slavery and acquiescence to some master." Sorry, I didn't check the grammar in my response. He responded, "I see it differently. Another 4 years of Trump will be a disaster. At so many levels, and it's the poorest and young people of color who get hurt the most." No, the young people of color have continuously been screwed by Democrats and Republicans alike. No, they've been continuously screwed by everybody else that come and ask for their votes and never get anything in return. We just have to look at the trend lines for where black folks or Latinos in general are going. And yes, they have a few stars that come out. Yes, they have a few executives that come out. But look at the aggregate. You don't have to look at the aggregate of other groups, of specifically one group, to see that they are falling behind too, but at lesser rates. So folks, my answer, I know that is how you see it. They don't. The catharsis is not for them, but you. Again, they have little to lose. It is you who have a lot to lose. When that is realized, maybe the alliance between the current guardians of the gate and the masses will occur. Think about what you said. Do you really even care about the poor? Everyone uses them as pawns. They won't get the last laugh, but neither those allied with those holding them back. In other words, okay, I have asked everybody for help. I have asked everybody for help, and the only one, and you who is supposed to be allied with me, you're not helping me. You're asking me to help you every single time. So every election, I am there to support you. Every election, I am voting with you. And you constantly tell me, wait your turn. You constantly tell me, wait. You tell the poor, wait. You tell those asking for health care, wait. While those that are the guardians of the gate, they continuously they live happy, and then they look down at those that are poor. Why did they work as hard as I did? Well, you know what? They did. Many of them, yes, they did. Who will be their advocates? So my response, we should be, he comes back and he says, we should be united to defeat Trump. My issue is that Bernie puts himself and his causes above that. He is not satisfied with working for health care for all. He wants Medicare for all run by the government. Will re-electing Trump get us there? No, but getting Biden doesn't get us there either. They're both beholden to the corporatocracy. They're both beholden to a system that is not functional. They are both regarded to a private healthcare system that mathematically does not work. And you know when you're going to see it? Coronavirus is going to push us into Medicare for all much quicker than Bernie could. And you know why? Because people are going to start getting their Medicare bill or their healthcare bills. People are going to start seeing, oh my God, you mean I am a coronavirus? At first, when I was working in corporate America, at first when I thought I had a good job, at first when I thought about all these things, things were great, things were marvelous. You know why? Because I figure there's nothing that could happen in society that's going to hurt me. Oh, nothing could happen that could make me suffer. Well, coronavirus knows knows no discrimination. So that executive can get coronavirus. And when he's no use to the plutocracy, you go. When he's no use to anything else, you go. That's what people don't understand. This system is extractive. It chews you out. And when you are no use for the profit margins, when you are no use to enhance or enrich the shareholder, when you are no use, you are baggage and you're thrown away. And without a safety net, that's what happens. So when he says, you should be reunited in my issue, I said, no. I will answer these questions on my Politics Done Right show today. And the reason I'm doing this, my brothers and my sisters, is the following. When you are not living within the pain, when you don't see the pain with your eyes, we are then dependent on something known as empathy. There is something that is very lacking within the Republican mindset. And that is they have almost and absolutely no empathy whatsoever. That is almost a given. But here is the thing. There is empathy within a sect of the Democratic Party. There is an empathy that we normally see within that sect of the party. So empathy, bottom line, it is empathy that's what's needed, folks. And what they're asking right now is they're saying, all of you followers of Bernie Sanders just need to jump on board the Joe Biden train, because most Democrats decided that Joe Biden was the person that was going to lead the Democratic Party into beating Donald Trump. That's fine. Democrats are going to support Joe Biden. The question is, with what fervor and how many independents will see a reason to throw away Donald Trump? We have thousands of reasons to throw him away. But let me forewarn people, there is a sect in this country that still believes Donald Trump is doing just fine. The evangelicals, the church people, the rich people, the plutocracy. The truth of the matter is, yeah, they believe that Donald Trump is the right guy for the job, not because they like Donald Trump, but because he's there to fulfill their purposes. For the evangelicals, he's getting all those conservative judges that's going to change policies to support churches, to give to those charlatanes that run the churches. Oh, yeah, he's going to do that just fine. He's going to make sure to keep regulations so low that, hey, guess what? The rich people have a reason to vote for him. So you see, Donald Trump is presenting a segmented voter base. A segmented voter base that could add up to more than what those who really want good policies add up to. However, just think about this. Just like the rich person is voting for Donald Trump because they know they will do better with less regulations, because they'll do better with less taxes as they pilfer us all. They know they'll do better. Evangelicals who don't work on logic, they work on faith. Faith isn't logic. And this is not any anti-religious statement or anything of that nature. When you have faith, you are saying, I am willing to deny logic where it happens if I have faith. So if something doesn't make sense, faith wins over science. And that is a grand portion of the Republican Party. That's a grand portion of the evangelical movement. That's a grand portion of a lot of different segmented groups. So what Donald Trump is very good at is putting all of that together. And he has a young team that's doing that. But what he could never say is, if we went ahead and said, everybody's getting Medicare for all, everybody's getting forgiveness for student loans, everybody are getting all these things. We've already proven with the coronavirus that we can use MMT, modern monetary theory, and guess what? You're not going to get inflation. And in fact, modern monetary theory was used to give that $1.5 trillion tax break. Not a problem. They always have and it's used to increase the budget for the defense and to fight all these wars. Never a problem. But when it is time to give the average American citizen anything, it's a problem. And one of the reasons why, they don't ever tell you what the reason is for that. But I know what the reason is, right? If you make the lives of middle class and poor people a bit more pleasurable, if you make their lives where they don't have worries that they don't have to work for Corporation A or Corporation B, if Corporation A pisses them off, they can go home, and while they're looking to work for Corporation B or form their own company, they still have health care, then they're more willing to do that. Corporations don't like that, because the corporation is a master-slave relationship. What I say, go, and you follow. If you don't like it, get the hell out of here. The only difference with slavery, you couldn't get the hell out of there. But to get the hell out of here, if you don't like it, and while you're out of here, I'm not paying unemployment because you quit. So understand, corporations want a certain amount of pain on the average American citizen because it makes them more pliable. It makes them more acquiescent to whatever it is that you have to offer them. So understand that. So when we start talking about social programs that create a Bill of Rights for humanity, a Bill of Rights for the citizen, a Bill of Rights, you know, the Bill of Rights that you got there, you know who makes the best use of the Bill of Rights? A corporation. You know, they can spend whatever they want. Hey, Citizens United. So we have to understand the reasons for all of this. And when we understand that, then we would have made progress. So Bernie Sanders quit today. Not quit. He suspended his campaign. But he wants his voters to still go out there to these different states and vote for Bernie Sanders so that Bernie Sanders will earn delegates. And when we start to get all the delegates in Milwaukee, if we meet in Milwaukee, or we get those delegates elsewhere, either remotely or however it's going to be done, they have influence. They may say, but look, Biden may just have all the votes that he needs to win this stuff without even talking to Bernie. That's not true. He would have won the Democratic primary, but if he doesn't put things that the left wants in there, you know, like I said, a lot of the young people have nothing to lose. And, you know, my friend says, well, you know, they may have something, you know, it's going to be worse for people of color and worse. It's always worse for people of color. It's always worse for the youth. It's always worse. So what is worse plus one? And that's the way they see it. Right now, a lot of these people, you know, I am not one. I am going to be pushing for the ticket, but I'm not going to be acquiescent to just saying, just get in line and vote correctly. I am going to be fighting for policy. And we are going to make it our business to let it be known if you want support, you need to start offering policy. Middle class centric policy. And the other thing that we will be doing is educating the masses, including all those. When I say educating, I don't want to sound presumptuous, but informing the masses who also voted for Biden, the sort of the con job that occurred when it came to telling Americans, oh, if you don't do this, we're definitely going to lose to Trump. Because mark my words, and you can mark these words and cut this out, Trump will be triangulating Biden. Trump will be running to the left of Biden on many issues, and because it's going to be coming out of the mouth of Donald Trump, guess who will be supporting it? You will see evangelicals supporting Medicare for all. You will see evangelicals supporting student loan debt relief if Donald Trump believes that is the way to victory. Because remember, he only needs a little piece to add to his evangelicals and to the rich. That's all you need, a little piece. But the piece that we have, the piece that we need, are the pieces that want good social policy. Anyhow, folks, the next segment of the show, we are going to bring in the one and only Bruce Pollard. Bruce is a scientist, and he called me up a few hours ago, and he said, you know, those charts are misleading, Egberto. Those charts are misleading. We need to do something about those charts. So I said, Bruce, since you've already found that it's misleading, let's do something about it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Bruce into the show. Welcome to another segment of Politics Done Right. I'm here with the one and only Bruce Pollard. Bruce Pollard is a former scientist for several major corporations, and you know what? He turned political activist. This guy is a great guy. He's been making sure that the progressive movement moves forward by not only his intellect, but his support. Anyhow, Bruce Pollard, how are you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here. And you know, my number one point is this climate problem, but it's further off from the problems that we have right now. So I'm looking at that too.
I know, but you know, let me tell you something, Bruce, because when you called me today, you called me and said, hey, Egberto, that number, the way they're talking about those curves, it's not right. The curve, they're saying the curve's flattening, but it's not so. Bruce, when you told me that, I said to myself, you know, the Trump administration have been fooling people. I don't think a lot of what was done with the curves are necessarily intentional, but I think the interpretation given by others or so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the curve up on the table, or rather on the screen, and you start explaining to us what you were trying to tell me today.
Yeah, so, you know, really what I think is happening is it takes a little while for science to work itself out. And we've got great scientists in the United States and around the world, but it takes a while to understand these things. And for sure, we're starting to understand what the COVID virus does that makes it different from all the rest. But still, there are some things that are the same as the flu virus. And that is, no matter what we do to try and stop it, it's always going to still have some effect to us. And if you look, for example, at the graphs that are coming out from Bill Gates' organization, not really Bill Gates' organization, but the University of Washington, that's funded by Bill. The graphs are very, kind of the same on both sides. We call that symmetric. And they go back down to zero, which makes it look like by perhaps the end of June, or maybe even sometime in June, there won't be any more people dying of COVID. But I just don't think that's true. Because if you look at the flu has this ramp that goes back up. So what I tried to do on this graph on the other side is, you can see all these graphs, they go down and they sit at zero. But that's not the way it really goes. It's going to sit down up at something. There's still going to be perhaps 100 or more deaths per month until we really solve it, which is going to be a long while. And I think that that's going to be something which is going to change the way that we live. And it's important for people to start understanding that, and especially the news people who are going, oh, I like this other side. They got to start looking at what the actual condition's going to be, and it's going to rival the flu. There's going to be people for the next many years which are going to have the problem with this as the virus changes its form, and as we get a little bit better in the way of treating it. It's actually exciting because they're starting to do some really great science and seeing what's causing the deaths with this particular virus is different from the other ones. And that a really tough, strong pumping of the air isn't the best thing to do, but a soft pressing or just oxygen available is a better thing. So I think they're starting to understand the treatment. It takes a while for those things to happen, Alberto.
Now, let me ask you something, Bruce, because I think the mere fact that you're telling me the steady state is that we're going to probably have 100 or so or whatever amount of deaths over the next few months. It also means that we're going to have a constancy of contagious people, which means at any given time, if we don't continue with the practices that we've started, with the isolate, what is it called? Isolation or
added distance, all that's different.
Right. If we don't keep that up, any one of those 100 deaths that's occurring sort of at a constancy could actually materialize itself into an explosion again.
Yeah. I don't think we'll have to be wearing masks forever, but depending upon how we really understand how the disease transforms and how it transmits from one person to the next, we're going to have to do different things. We won't be giving people hugs. We won't be, you know how like when French people meet each other, they give each other a kiss on each cheek? That won't happen.
You know, I'm from Central America, Latin America, and that is going to be one of the hardest things. You know, we are so used to big hugs and a chest, it is just a culture.
At a distance.
It's going to be a cultural change because, like I said, we meet people, it's a big hug, and it was bad enough when Me Too came about. Even here in Kingwood, everybody that I meet, it's always a hug. Hey, Berto, how you doing? And and the last time I had a meeting, and there's, I'm about to hug this young lady. Both of us are in the motion of hugging, and I pulled back, and it's like, what's wrong? And it's like, you're scared about Me Too, the Me Too movement, and now you're scared about the virus. It is sort of, wow, we're kind of taking out the socialization out of social, right?
Yeah, so there'll be new ways of showing respect to each other. For example, in Picard, they do this to each other. I think that there'll be new ways that we'll be expressing our respect for each other, and that's important.
Yeah, there's nothing of. I just have to say this, Bruce, just myself. Giving up the hug is going to be very difficult, and it's going to take some practice because you see somebody that You know, we've been apart for a very long time now. It's going to be quite interesting, and it's going to be quite interesting. But when you spoke about the curves, I think about the graphs. I think it is so important now. One of the reasons I said, "Hey, Bruce, don't just tell me about this. Come on air and say it as well,"
Yeah.
is because I think people have to come to that understanding and realize that we're going to be constantly near a potential explosion given that.
So it really takes, even though science happens fast, it really does take a while for us to sort things out, especially in the medical field, where you need to have good scientists, which most of our, bless those, all the people that are working in that space, they're, in dangerous way, but they're starting to sort this out, and there's a lot of importance. I mean, they're trained to observe and understand and pay attention and mark those charts down and keep track of the instrument, the stuff. You'd think artificial intelligence would be better, but I did a search of the artificial intelligence, and 90% of the artificial intelligence that I found around COVID was all about economy. And it's not about economy yet.
That tells you something,
It's
doesn't it?
about keeping alive.
That tells you something, doesn't it? It tells you, this is a short change of subject, folks. Excuse me, but Bruce just hit a nerve. Bruce, you just tell me that as you were researching with artificial intelligence, COVID-19, most of what you got was economic answers.
Yeah.
That just tells you something that we preach all the time on Politics Done Right. The economic system that we have right now, it is capital first, humanity second.
Yeah, so the economic system, I mean, for example, our black population is suffering by far more than our other racial population.
Right.
And if you sit and you look at the root cause, I do these things called root cause analyses all the time. I think if I sat with the people and did a root cause analysis, it would be an economic thing that's
always economic.
Put the black population in the world of hurt.
Again, I did, my daughter drove through Appalachia. And the reason I like to use Appalachia as an example is because I always said that the best ally, the people that should be allies in this country, and you hear me say it on the show all the time, Appalachia, the barrios, and the ghettos. It's stereotypical, the statement, but if those groups got together, they would realize, first of all, they have more in common than not, and also together they make up the majority of the country and would exert a hell of a power in the system. Bruce, look, I want to first of all thank you so kindly for giving me your time and pointing that out with the graphs, because I think it is something that needed to be shared throughout.
Well, thanks for giving me a chance to say something. I'm going to keep hunting forward.
Please do.
And, what you're doing is something that not all of us have the chutzpah to go ahead and push forward. And I bless you for it.
Well, let me tell you, Bruce, we couldn't do it without good people like you in the world. So, I mean, this is all of us bring what we need to bring to move forward, and we all do it. And no one is more important than the other. So thank you for what you do as well, my brother.
Let's see what we can do all together.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful day, and thanks for being on Politics Done Right. Well, I hope you enjoyed Bruce Pollard. He is a great guy. Now, folks, as you know, Bernie exited the campaign, shut down his campaign today. I want you to listen to his exit speech. It's not very long, but it's worth listening to, and it's worth spreading widely. Check this out.
Very much for joining me. I want to express to each of you my deep gratitude for helping to create an unprecedented grassroots political campaign that has had a profound impact in changing our nation. I want to thank the hundreds of thousands of volunteers who knocked on doors, millions of them, in the freezing winters of Iowa and New Hampshire, and in the heat of Nevada and in South Carolina, and in states throughout the country. I want to thank the 2 million Americans who have contributed financially to our campaign and showed the world that we can take on a corrupt campaign finance system and run a major presidential campaign without being dependent upon the wealthy and the powerful. Thank you for your 10 million contributions, averaging $18.50 a donation. I want to thank those who phone banked for our campaign and those of you who sent out millions of texts. And I want to thank the many hundreds of thousands of Americans who attended our rallies, town meetings, and house parties from New York to California. Some of these events had over 25,000 people, some had a few hundred, and some had a dozen, but all were important. And let me thank those who made these many events possible. I also want to thank our surrogates, too many to name. I can't imagine that any candidate has ever been blessed with a stronger and more dedicated group of people who have taken our message to every part of this country. And I want to thank all of those who made the music and the art an integral part of our campaign. I want to thank all of you who spoke to your friends and neighbors, posted on social media, and worked as hard as you could to make this a better country. Together, we have transformed American consciousness as to what kind of nation we can become, and have taken this country a major step forward in the never-ending struggle for economic justice, social justice, racial justice, and environmental justice. I also want to thank the many hundreds of people on our campaign staff. You were willing to move from one state to another and do all the work that had to be done. No job was too big or too small for you. You rolled up your sleeves and you did it. You embodied the words that are at the core of our movement, not me, but us. And I thank each and every one of you for what you've done. As many of you will recall, Nelson Mandela, one of the great freedom fighters in modern world history, famously said, and I quote, "It always seems impossible until it is done," end quote. And what he meant by that is that the greatest obstacle to real social change has everything to do with the power of the corporate and political establishment to limit our vision as to what is possible and what we are entitled to as human beings. If we don't believe that we are entitled to health care as a human right, we will never achieve universal health care. If we don't believe that we are entitled to decent wages and working conditions, millions of us will continue to live in poverty. If we don't believe that we are entitled to all of the education we require to fulfill our dreams, many of us will leave school saddled with huge debt or never get the education we need. If we don't believe that we are entitled to live in a world that has a clean environment and is not ravaged by climate change, we will continue to see more drought, floods, rising sea levels, and increasingly uninhabitable planet. If we don't believe that we are entitled to live in a world of justice, democracy, and fairness without racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, or religious bigotry, we will continue to have massive income and wealth inequality, prejudice and hatred, mass incarceration, terrified immigrants, and hundreds of thousands of Americans sleeping out on the streets in the richest country on earth. And focusing on that new vision for America is what our campaign has been about and what, in fact, we have accomplished. Few would deny that over the course of the past 5 years, our movement has won the ideological struggle. In so-called red states and blue states and purple states, a majority of the American people now understand that we must raise the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour, that we must guarantee health care as a right to all of our people, that we must transform our energy system away from fossil fuel, and that higher education must be available to all, regardless of income. It was not long ago that people considered these ideas radical and fringe. Today, they are mainstream ideas, and many of them are already being implemented in cities and states across the country. That is what we have accomplished together. In terms of healthcare, even before this horrific pandemic we are now experiencing, more and more Americans understood that we must move to a Medicare for All single-payer program. During the primary elections, exit polls showed in state after state a strong majority of Democratic primary voters supported a single government health insurance program to replace private insurance. That was true even in states where our campaign did not prevail. And let me just say this, in terms of healthcare, this current horrific crisis that we are now in has exposed for all to see how absurd our current employer-based health insurance system is. The current economic downturn we are experiencing has not only led to a massive loss of jobs, but has also resulted in millions of Americans losing their health insurance. While Americans have been told over and over again how wonderful our employer-based private insurance system is, those claims sound very hollow today as a growing number of unemployed workers struggle with how they can afford to go to the doctor or not go bankrupt with a huge hospital bill. We have always believed that healthcare must be considered as a human right, not an employee benefit, and we are right. Please also appreciate that not only are we winning the struggle ideologically, we are also winning it generationally. The future of our country rests with young people. And in state after state, whether we won or whether we lost, the Democratic primaries or caucuses, we received a significant majority of the votes, sometimes an overwhelming majority, from people not only 30 years of age or under, but 50 years of age or younger. In other words, the future of this country is with our ideas. As we are all painfully aware, we now face an unprecedented crisis. Not only are we dealing with a coronavirus pandemic, which is taking the lives of many thousands of our people, we are also dealing with an economic meltdown that has resulted in the loss of millions of jobs. Today, families all across our country face financial hardship unimaginable only a few months ago. And because of the unacceptable levels of income and wealth inequality in our economy, many of our friends and neighbors have little or no savings and are desperately trying to pay their rent or their mortgage or even put food on the table. This reality makes it clear to me that Congress must address this unprecedented crisis in an unprecedented way that protects the health and economic well-being of the working families of our country, not just powerful special interests. As a member of the Democratic leadership in the United States Senate, and as a senator from the state of Vermont, this is something that I intend to intensely be involved in over the next number of months, and that will require an enormous amount of work. Which takes me to the state of our presidential campaign. I wish I could give you better news, but I think you know the truth. And that is that we are now some 300 delegates behind Vice President Biden, and the path toward victory is virtually impossible. So while we are winning the ideological battle, and while we are winning the support of so many young people and working people throughout the country, I have concluded that this battle for the Democratic nomination will not be successful. And so today, I am announcing the suspension of my campaign. Please know that I do not make this decision lightly. In fact, it has been a very difficult and painful decision. Over the past few weeks, Jane and I, in consultation with top staff and many of our prominent supporters, have made an honest assessment of the prospects for victory. If I believed we had a feasible path to the nomination, I would certainly continue the campaign, but it's just not there. I know that there may be some in our movement who disagree with this decision, who would like us to fight on to the last ballot cast at the Democratic Convention. I understand that position. But as I see the crisis gripping the nation, exacerbated by a president unwilling or unable to provide any kind of credible leadership, and the work that needs to be done to protect people in this most desperate hour, I cannot, in good conscience, continue to mount a campaign that cannot win and which would interfere with the important work required of all of us in this difficult hour. But let me say this very emphatically. As you all know, we have never been just a campaign. We are a grassroots, multiracial, multi-generational movement which has always believed that real change never comes from the top on down, but always from the bottom on up. We have taken on Wall Street, the insurance companies, the drug companies, the fossil fuel industry, the military-industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, and the greed of the entire corporate elite. That struggle continues. While this campaign is coming to an end, our movement is not. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us that, quote, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice," end quote. The fight for justice is what our campaign has been about. The fight for justice is what our movement remains about. Today, I congratulate Joe Biden, a very decent man, who I will work with to move our progressive ideas forward. On a practical note, let me also say this. I will stay on the ballot in all remaining states and continue to gather delegates. While Vice President Biden will be the nominee, we must continue working to assemble as many delegates as possible at the Democratic Convention, where we will be able to exert significant influence over the party platform and other functions. Then together, standing united, we will go forward to defeat Donald Trump, the most dangerous president in modern American history. And we will fight to elect strong progressives at every level of government, from Congress to the school board. As I hope all of you know, this race has never been about me. I ran for the presidency because I believed that as a president, I could accelerate and institutionalize the progressive changes that we are all building together. And if we keep organizing and fighting, I have no doubt but that is exactly what will happen. While the path may be slower now, we will change this nation, and with like-minded friends around the globe, change the entire world. On a very personal note, speaking for Jane, myself, and our entire family, we will always carry in our hearts the memory of the extraordinary people we have met across this country. We often hear about the beauty of America, and this country is incredibly beautiful. But to me, the beauty I will remember most is in the faces of the people we have met from one corner of this nation to the other. The compassion, love, and decency I have seen in them makes me so hopeful for our future. It also makes me more determined than ever to work to create a nation that reflects those values and lifts up all of our people. Please stay in this fight with me. Let us go forward together. The struggle continues. Thank you all very much.
Okay, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Now, here's the important thing. As you know, progressive media needs your support. We are progressive media, and without you, we just couldn't exist. So what I want to ask you guys is to please remember to visit store.politicsdoneright.com. That is store.politicsdoneright.com. For those of you who are watching it on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook Live, or anywhere else, you can see the products that we have, which is, as I see it, my book, which is a very good read. Check it out, as well as our cups, our T-shirts, etc., and my book that's called Lose Weight and Be Fit Now. All those things are available on our store, so check it out. Support the show by doing that. You're adding value to. You're getting something for doing something positive to ensure that we move the movement forward. Likewise, I want to advise you to please go to patreon.com/politics done right. If you want to subscribe to the show, go to Patreon. That's patreon.com/politics done right. If you just want to be a contributor to the show, please go to paypal.me/politics done right. Again, that is paypal.me/politics done right again. But what we need are your subscriptions. So please go to patreon.com/politics done right. This is the end of the program. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be tomorrow again. So my name is Egberto Willies, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.